Yo, what is going on, everybody? This is Brandon.
From Comics Kings. I'm John from John's Comics with Kids, but I'm not Hillbilly Comics.
Welcome back to the kingdom, everyone, or welcome if this is your first time. Yes, John is here because Bryce is chilling at a con, and right now he is chilling in the chat.
I thought he was just out. Isn't he just done? He's not allowed on this show anymore. I'm taking over.
Oh, you are? You're taking over. Official co-host. We have the two TikTok sensations of the comic community taking over the day.
So good.
Oh my gosh. We got Robin in here. What is going on? Make sure you guys leave a comment about what you're reading this week. We always love to hear that from you. Surprisingly, there's no guest on the show. No other guests on the show tonight. No creators coming on this week. I didn't reach out to anyone because I forgot to look at what was coming out the following week because I was on vacation and I played catch up this whole week. And I'm like, what is going on my pull list this week? I didn't even know it came out this week. I just bought. But John, how are you doing this week?
It was a busy week. I even missed a couple of books. So I think in the end, I'll have 12 new comics from just this last week. That's
awesome. Yeah, this was a lighter week. I've been trying to cut back on my books. What is going on, Jason Clayman Comics? How you doing, brother? So I have 17 this week opposed to the 25 I was usually pulling, plus a trade. So I was like, new comic book day was kind of a B word, but what's going on in Link Station? Also a little bit of house cleaning, you guys. There's the Rom V interview that just came out that you can go catch the replay of. Rom V will be writing a fun comic book, pitching that. So you can find out all of Rom V's information that you are going to hear first on Comics Kings before anywhere else in the world knows about it. Okay, so I highly encourage you guys to go check that out. Also, we have a new archives coming out sometime this week. We're going to be reviewing Shang-Chi, the first volume by Jen Luen Yang. A couple homies from TikTok, and Missing Link was on there, who you're going to see a lot of. And then what's going on, Sebastian? And then Creators Corner, we're gonna have Terry Dodson and Matt Fraction coming on upon the return of Adventure Man, and October is booked, November is booked, December is booked, and January is also booked.
You can't even get in the room at this point. Or if you're not on the list, you can't even get in.
Oh no. You can't even get it. It reminds me of the song "Look at Me Now" by Chris Brown. How can you hate from outside of the club? You can't even get in. What's going on your end? Doing a little bit of house cleaning before the show. Do you have any announcements, John?
No, I mean, my schedule's been pretty brutal with work and family, and now soccer season's going for Charlie. So I do sometimes I do reffing and stuff. So my week is just packed.
No tackling over in soccer?
No slide tackles.
No slide tackles. No tackles. Happy Football Sunday to everybody.
No, I mean European football.
Not
American football.
Of course. But let's dive into the books. First book I do want to dive into is a book from Image, which has one of my favorite creative teams out there right now, Scotty Young and Jorge Corona, the Me You Love in the Dark, issue number 2. The way John's nodding his head. By the way, his link is in the description below as well for his YouTube and his TikTok. Let's get him some love over there. But I don't like to spoil indie books because I really want you guys to experience the read. But this book is very edgy. It makes you think. It's a little creepy. I love the lettering in here probably the most aside from the artwork. But the one thing that I've learned the most about this creative team coming off of Middle West is that's really where they established their chemistry to make this book so silent. Like, if you look at the difference between Middle West and the Me Love in the Dark, is Scotty Young was very verbose in the beginning, obviously setting up the world, but he's relying 100% on Jorge Corona, and that's 100% because they have that chemistry, because he knows Jorge Corona as an artist, and they're just both showing their versatility and their trust in each other in this book. And it's not necessarily horror. I'd say it's more trippy, more psychedelic than a complete horror fest. How did you like this book, John?
I was the one that for book club convinced White Whale Comics to read this. He was not as big a fan as me. Issue number 1 I thought was a solid 7.5, 8. Like, I had a good premise. I didn't know what the tone was going to be. Is this a horror? Is this a romance? Is this something mysterious and creepy? I don't know. And I think I got a better sense of it in this issue. I think this is a superior issue to issue 1. So I'd give this 8.5 maybe. I think the tone is, as you're saying, not horror right now. It feels more like mistaken romance that's not necessarily going to work out, which could be creepy. But I love the mood and tone. Like you're saying, there's a pacing to it where there's not a ton to read, but there is a ton to digest on the page.
Right, 100%. And basically the plot of this book is there is this young artist out there who's kind of in an artist block. Like, you know how writers have like that writer's block? She's in an artist block. So she goes to this house where you're supposed to have like a lot of ideas. It's like no one goes there because it has a reputation for being a dark place. The me you love in the dark, hence the title. But she's going there to kind of get to be alone because that's like the number one thing. But two, so she can see all of the artwork in this house and get an idea for the darkness in there to generate some ideas. So as she's getting over this block, it's obviously haunted, and that haunted figure is kind of what's going to drive her to get over that block. So I think there are a lot of artists out there that could relate to this. A lot of people out there who can relate to this book, but also, like we said, it's just trippy. It's getting a little psychedelic, but it's so minor and it's so subtle that you really just have to look at the art and observe it. I recommend it 100%.
Me too. And I think just my love for Middle West is kind of what made me seek it out. And if it ends up being half as good as Middle West, I'll be very pleased.
Right, and Middle West just got a hardcover about a month ago.
Nice.
And so if you guys did not pick up the trades, buy the hardcover, or if you did pick up the trades and the single issues and you still want the hardcover, it's on my Amazon wish list, and you could just get that for me. No, what's a backlog, bro? Completely missed the face on the cover.
Yeah, it's right. He's talking about this cover right here. There's like a face right there on the side.
Oh, is that the B cover? Or is that the A cover?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think it might be
the A. Yeah, I got the A cover, which I'm not really a stickler for variant. I've been cutting back on my variants, which is a little not like me. I've been really the only variant I got this week. You're gonna be very proud of me. Was the Conan 300 Mr. Garson cover. That's the only variant that I bought this week. What did you read this week, John?
Well, I mean, if you want to keep going indies, my read of the week was Not All Robots, issue number 2 from AWA Upshot. This is from Mark Russell, the guy who did Second Coming, and he's still working on, obviously, the second story arc of Second Coming. This is a futuristic story, not post-apocalyptic or anything. Robots are now the main workforce in the world, and they do all the jobs, and humans live like at home, kind of like, I don't want to say they're pets, but they're in this bizarre symbiotic relationship where they don't necessarily need one another, yet they are cohabitating. And there's a lot of fun politicizing going on where the robots are trying to decide, do we need the humans? Should we just kill them all? There's so many of them. What does it matter? And the humans are deciding, well, do we destroy these robots? Because I don't know how we can live without them. And some of them like the robots and some of them like the humans and some don't. It's an interesting parable for race and gender relations.
Do robots have genders in the book?
Again, they are forcing them in issue 2 to assign them more likable names. So like Fred or Bill, but before they were like, Blade Chopper or whatever. Okay, they were like, they had like badass names, but now humans are like scared of them because of an incident that happened in Florida where a huge portion of the population in this one city was destroyed by a gas leak that seems intentionally caused by one of the robots.
That sounds ridiculous. When you started talking about the names, I started thinking of the Clone Wars, like how they got their names instead of like they're all kind of not clones anymore. A book that I want to talk about. I did not like it. I was so excited for this book because we have not seen a Kazar comic in forever. So I picked up the first one. It's by Zach Thompson, who I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of. For people who are fans of Zach Thompson, I don't think you have a reason to be because he doesn't put out anything good. But Herman Garcia was the artist, and it looked atrocious. I feel like I'm Simon Cowell right now in American Idol, just saying this looked atrocious. This was garbage because it was. This is a fun. It's a fun team. What's up, aggressively relaxing? Yeah, no Bryce this week, so we got Mr. John J. We got the two TikTok sensations hanging out today. You can
carrying the comic book YouTube into TikTok world.
Exactly. Talking comics in 60 seconds or less. You know how we roll over there. We're just being completely ridiculous. But this art was so. I've never imagined the Savage Land being so graffiti-like with watercolors, which I didn't like. Whenever I think the Savage Land, I automatically think, okay, John Romita Sr. when Kazar crossed over in Daredevil. I think of John Byrne in Uncanny X-Men. Right?
That's where my mind goes for
That's
sure.
Where, yeah, and just like even the colors like were bright in that.
Or even Jim Lee in his era of Uncanny,
right.
He did some great Savage Land stuff.
Right, but I'm used to like kind of the jungle scene of it looking like a Savage Land, almost like the way you would format a Conan story if he ever really like when he gets to the Savage Land, which we've seen in Savage Avengers a few times, right? Or Pat Zurcher, Ivan Coelho. Who else is doing it? What's his name? I can't think of his name right now, but he did a Wolverine cover that I picked up. It'll come to me. But like just this starting out like this, just like it just didn't look good, and it was very hard to really grasp the setting of it and what they're trying to do with Kazar and trying to give him new powers, give him a new situation for possible more storytelling was completely ignored for me because the art was just so all over the place. Bad. And it's like I barely see Kazar. I feel like Kazar was not positioned right in the art. So like no matter what you did, I'm like looking at him like where the hell is Waldo in this book? So it just didn't do it for me. I'm out. I'm not picking it up. I don't care anymore. I love Kazar, but I'll see him in another book sometime. It's only a matter of time before he pops up in Savage Avengers. So I'll get him there. This was not for me. If it's for you, great. But I didn't like the art. The storytelling didn't do it for me either because it did me no favors transitioning from young Kazar to adult Kazar to we don't even really know who Kazar is anymore because no one's read him for 20 plus years. So just make it simple, and this was too complex for me personally.
All right.
But
I'm glad I avoided it.
I am glad you avoided it too, and Marvel owes me $4 and my money back. I don't care. I'm out of it. Cutting the ties. What's the book you read, John?
Well, let's do. I mean, you're the X guy with me, so the only X title I read last week was X-Force.
Awesome, because I read Excalibur and X-Force.
Hey, what I loved about this issue of X-Force was it was a connective tissue piece to the invasion of Krakoa that happened not that long ago, where like they were doing an autopsy and the body just like burst open beasts that like invaded the island, and X-Force had to shut them all down.
Right.
This is a throwback to that, and Beast dissecting a body, and all of a sudden like a tiny little fragment of the creature is still alive and like jumps into his ear and like invades his mind. It was very Prometheus kind of esque here. I really kind of dug it. And for me, it was perfectly like that. What I want this book to be more regularly, which is a little bit of like horror, a little bit of like extreme graphic violence. That's what I want for my X-Force. So this worked for me a bunch.
Yeah, this book felt like the classic Yost and Crane team up from the early 2000s. That's really like kind of the way that the art looked for me, and just kind of like the darker tone to it.
Sure.
I love what they're doing with Beast and just making him out to be a dick, because Beast has always been such a one-dimensional character for a very long time in X-Men. Like that was my weakest part of Astonishing X-Men that Josh Whedon did, was Beast. A lot of the Uncanny X-Men, other than Cyclops, my weakest link was Beast. We all know Cyclops is a trigger on this channel, but
just for you.
It's funny because I have a Cyclops Jim Lee print that I just picked up. It's just I'm afraid to hang it up here because I know everyone's gonna come at me.
Hey, you know, when you spout fire, you're gonna call the fire department on you.
I mean, it's Jim Lee and it was $10 framed, so I'm like, Ooh, how can I pass this up?
Is it? It might be worth it, right?
It was worth it. It was worth it. I might gift it to someone, but Excalibur, the other X title that came out this week. So Doom is in Otherworld. There is a war that is going to be going on between Saturnine and Merlin, sorry, and Betsy and Excalibur are caught in the middle of it, literally, because they have to go from Avalon, which Morgan Le Fay is back in Avalon, so she took over that. That made Merlin unhappy, so he's coming at Saturnine saying, I should have never given up my crown. Saturnine's kind of like, F you. Betsy, go do my blood for me. Betsy's like, yeah, no. And then Doom shows up, and Betsy's like, what the fuck, man? So just that dialogue is just fantastic. And then Doom wants to like get in bed with Betsy, and Betsy's like, what the fuck, man? And Gambit starts talking shit to Dr. Doom, so Dr. Doom's like, who the F are you? He's like, and they're like, it's Gambit. That's what he does. And Dr. Doom's like, I don't like this. Take me to Avalon. Do this for me. Do this. And Betsy's just like, this is Otherworld. Your reign is not welcomed here, and no one gives a shit who you are, Doom. And Doom's like, I'm Dr. Doom. Everyone loves me. And Richter's like, hey, no, you're not. So nobody's like, it's literally Doom trying to show his masculinity and his power, and everyone's just like, nope, not today. So this book was a little ridiculous. The art was fantastic. You guys know I'm a huge supporter of Marcus Toe. He's been on the show multiple times. And just this book was great. And at the end of the book, they kind of all go to like this tavern. And I would never imagine a drinking, like Dr. Doom and Betsy and all of them drinking together, and then that of course ends up into a fight, and then Doom and Betsy teamed up, and then Doom's just like, yeah, I'm gonna report back, I'm taking this place over, so we're gonna deal with that in the next issue. So we're dealing with a war, and now we're dealing with Doom in the mix, and Betsy's just like, what am I doing here, man? So I love it. This book really is great at portraying Betsy's strength as a character and her ability to problem solve and handle multiple aspects of a problem in an environment that she's not very used to, because this is her first time as Captain Britain. Usually that would be Brian's job to kind of manage Otherworld and everything going on there for the safety of the British Kingdom. But Betsy's just kind of coming in and dealing with everything and dealing with a team that really should not get along together. Any team with Gambit is kind of a team asking for a heart attack, but but she's doing a great job at it. I'm enjoying this book a lot. So it's always one of my most looked forward to comics coming out, and I know a lot of people don't like this book, but you're wrong, and you need to go reread it.
I was gonna say I'm clearly one of the minority, because I know a ton of people loving this particular era of X-Men who love Excalibur as one of their favorite books. I have ridden the roller coaster on that book, where it's like every once in a while I think, oh, they're really onto something cool, and then I feel like Trini Howard just discards it and moves on to something different, and you're like, well, that would have been really cool, and now you're doing something else I don't care about. And so that was always my frustration. Like, I'm still mad at her for Rogue Apocalypse. Still mad about it. It's been over a year, and I'm still feeling frustration.
It's been 20 issues, man. What's up, Tylax the Mighty? What is going on? How are you doing today? But that X-Men is great. We were talking about this the other day on Spine Ticks. I would not recommend catching the replay because it was probably 8 hours. But Teeny Howard hot takes. You guys know I'm all for Teeny Howard. But this is the most exciting time to be an X-Men fan, because this is setting the universe for what's going to be known for X-Men. So if you're not hopping on now, I would say if you're thinking about hopping on X-Men, do it, because you're going to want to, in the long run, to be a part of this ride. This is the first time in X-Men history where there is not a mutant in question, like, oh, I have not seen this person before. Or like, I haven't seen them in like 20 years, kind of like how we're getting we just got a Black Knight series. We're getting Kazar now. Yep. I'm like, I haven't seen these guys in how long of reading comics? But X-Men, this is where I can literally say, oh, you want to read this mutant? This book. Yeah, man. I dipped after 3.5 hours of Spine Ticks, man. I've been up late this whole week. So I didn't prepare well for Spine Ticks, and I was like, I took a power nap before, drank coffee, and it just wasn't enough to hang the whole time.
It's an endurance game, that Spinetics show.
Oh my gosh, I thought my stamina was great, but no. Sis said, let me teach you something.
Nobody matches with Steve, man.
I agree it's an exciting time for X-Men, but the lack of Hickman going forward worries me. Now, there is a lot to that because, as everyone knows, Hickman has been writing in phases, right? So you had Dawn of X, which we're out of. We're now in Reign of X, but because of COVID and the whole diamond shipment caused everything to be moved up a little bit. So Hickman just did all this in his Substack article. I really need to drop a link to this in my description. If one of my mods can do that for me, that would be great. But basically, you weren't supposed to have a Hellfire Gala. You weren't supposed to see Ten of Swords as a crossover. It was supposed to be in the long run, right? 2 years after House and Powers of X. What's going on? Okay, so what's going on? After Inferno, Hickman is leaving X-Men for a little bit. We don't know how long a little bit is because that's Hickman. He said he's going to be doing another Marvel project, and he still has a lot of things left in X-Men to handle. He also has a Bible that is encapsulating the future of X-Men. He is letting the creative teams. Okay, Ben Percy. Teenie Howard at Excalibur is ending, which I have confirmation about because she's going to DC after November, I believe. Which, if you guys watched the weekly wrap we did where we talked about Robin, we got that confirmation from Marcus Toad, the artist. But the creators are having a hell of a time writing the X-Men in this world, and they're just going to play around. Jonathan Hickman said, "Say, hey, have fun, tell your stories, but get to this point when I return."
Yeah, the article I read did not mention him returning. It just said, I'm doing other stuff for Marvel. They want me to do big events, and I've got a team in place, and we've talked about what's going to happen later on. But he never says, like, just simplistically, which drives me crazy. You can't just give me a quote. He doesn't specifically say, I will be coming back to write future events in my story arcs. Because I didn't see that quote anywhere. I heard him say, I had planned for blah, 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 blah. But then he doesn't seem to say, I'm still going to come back and do that.
Right.
That's the part the only thing that worries me. And I know that Chaos in Comics was like doom and gloom. He's like, this whole thing's been worthless. It's not worth it. Hickman burned me. This is awful. Like, he was like livid, and he's been one of the biggest like X fans.
Which is, I mean, we are getting 10 Lives of Wolverine, 10 Deaths of Wolverine, which of course you want to give Kev Walker that story and not make me want to read it, but I'm still going to read it. But Hickman is, if you guys know Hickman, he always has a plan, right? And I think it's too early to judge Hickman's era when it hasn't even ended yet. Fable Station, my friend. You got faith in Dugan, I do too, but
yeah,
it's too
I think
early
he's been the most consistent guy during this run, besides from Hickman. So
right. It's too early to really judge all of this, of what Hickman's going to be doing, or did everything pay off. Now, my other most critical book, which we're going to get into in a little bit in the show, if you guys noticed the title of it, but it's Spiderman. I've been very critical of that series, but I also didn't keep in mind at the time I was being that critical that, wow, COVID really did affect the narrative, except I still don't think Nick Spencer did an appropriate job adjusting to that in the cast of characters he chose to include and not pay off. You should have cut the characters in half, and you still could have achieved your Kindred story. But the COVID shipments really, and Diamond shutting down, really did affect the timeline of Marvel Comics, right? And some of these plans going forward. And hearing a lot of these creators come out of that saying, yeah, we got screwed over, that's also a reason why a lot of them are going to Substack, right? It's more benefit. There's more upside for them because they already have a fan base from being in the big two. Now they're taking their talents, like LeBron says, to South Beach, just to Substack. I hate that quote, but anyway, I digress. Hickman will be back. I have 100% faith. Again, it's still too early to tell. And if Hickman set the stepping stones for this universe for other creators to explore in the future on Krakoa, it's worth it because this gave your X-Men a dome and a new era of greatness.
I feel like I agree with what you're saying. If I know for a fact that he's coming back to write stuff later on, I'm far more confident in the future of this. If I hear that he's never coming back to write X-Men during this era and that it's left in the hands of other people, that's disappointing, I think. That's and nowhere have I heard definitively one or the other.
Right. Right now it's a bunch of speculation going on, but that's my 2 cents on this just because I've talked with people who are in the stories, and that's what I can share. Also, as a Heat fan, that brings, you know what, we can talk about other memories, but my Steelers won today in football, so I'm a happy camper. But another book that I do want to talk about. Let's get into Daredevil. This book was dope. I want to talk.
And that's the only one I didn't get out of my boxes. It's buried, but yes, I did.
Okay, Daredevil. This is by Chip Zdarsky and
Marco Cicchetto.
No, Cicchetto did not do this one. It was by Stefano Landini. I was looking. The one thing I have against Marvel is that they never put their credits in a definitive spot. It's like I spy throughout like the whole book. Sometimes in the middle, sometimes at the end, sometimes in the beginning. But Daredevil was like the king of prison. He blew it up because he was investigating how all the different criminals were able to get in, get out, get different weapons, do different things. He ended up blowing it up because he lost faith in the criminal justice system as a ex-prosecutor, but also as a defense lawyer and someone who people went to seek counsel for. So Daredevil got in a fight with Detective North as that's going on.
That was a good fight.
Yeah, that was awesome because their tension, their beef was building throughout the whole run so far. So this is like they were holding everything back until this point, and I still think there's juice left in because they're going to end up teaming up going in the long run because North hates Kingpin, Daredevil hates Kingpin, so they're going to team up at some point. But this time they were enemies. Elektra is going back out after almost dying, and the girl that she's been taking care of, she has a great moment with her, Alice, and she goes back out. Kingpin sends Typhoid Mary in a Daredevil costume to aid Elektra as she fights the multiple bullseyes. Excuse me. And this is just culminating to Devil's Reign, which is going to be Kingpin being pissed off that his prized possession, which is Clone Bullseye on steroids, is out in the open and looking for him. So we're dealing with that. And then there was kind of that prophecy of Daredevil and Elektra coming together to fight Bullseye, but only one is going to die. Now we see Typhoid Mary in the mix. So my mind is shifting of who might be the one to go. I don't think they're going to kill Elektra again because we've seen that before. Yeah. You're not going to kill Daredevil again because he almost flatlined at the end of the Charles Soule run. But this is another book that people have been all over and that people have been talking about because people don't think that Zdarsky's going to be staying on when he said he has multiple Daredevil stories in the can. So really at the end of Devil's Reign, you never know. The fact that it ends, so this arc ends right before the anniversary issue, which there's going to be an anniversary issue after Devil's Reign, and then they're probably going to start the renumbering at 1, which I believe is going to be an Elektra-centric Daredevil series written by Chip Zdarsky, and it's going to kind of follow the format of Jason Aaron's Thor.
That'd be pretty cool. I'd be down for that.
I would be down for that. But how did you enjoy this read, John?
It was great. I think that the last couple of arcs for Daredevil have been much slower. There hasn't been as much action. But the last 2-3 issues have been building up with a little more speed. I do think we're going to end these last, because there's 2 issues left, October, November, right? So right. I think these last couple issues are going to really be like a ton of Bullseyes versus a ton of Daredevils is kind of what I'm picturing here, right? Elektra, Matt Murdock, Typhoid Mary, and maybe even Cole North in a Daredevil-esque costume battling all these clone Bullseyes. That's what I want to see in these final 2 issues.
Clone Wars. That's been like a theme of today.
I would be so down for that. It would be awesome.
There you go, man. There you go. What else? What else you want to talk about today?
Let's see. The final issue of Eve. Anybody reading Eve from Boom Studios? I think it's Boom, right? Yeah, I think it's a Boom book.
Yeah, I'm not on that book.
So I did not pick this up because I thought, oh, it's a kid's book. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily need to read that. Everybody told me it was great, and they were factually correct. It is great. It's a fun, unusual post-apocalyptic book. And the best part about it is this creepy, crazy, robotic teddy bear that's like both helper and like horror at the same time. And that's the culminating element of this story is it's her trying to outwit the creepy teddy bear robot. So this is the final issue. I thought it was a great miniseries. It would make a great trade paperback. So if you want to check that out, Victor Laval and Joe Menjong are the talent behind it. I thought it was just really well done. Another fun miniseries from Boom Studios.
Right. I'm trade weighting it. That's kind of been where I am with a lot of indie, just because the big two are so hard to keep up with.
Sure. Well, it's as far as I know, it's not going to be an ongoing. There's not a second story later on. It's just this one storyline.
Right. Tylek says, I also trust Jerry Dugan. He'll do a great job. Many different people have stepped up to write dope X-Men. Won't be the last time either. Exactly. What's going on, Steven's station to you, sir? And Bryce says, John, that Cold North Daredevil was an idea I didn't think I know and needed to now. Yeah, that would be badass, wouldn't it?
I think he would be great. And I think they've been clearly setting him up as this fun, low-key, like chill, low-key kind of player all the way through. And it would be nice to give him a couple of shiny moments here at the end.
Right. Maybe I do have to check out Eve. But there is an announcement that I do have. It's kind of been under the radar. I am officially a PCP Army Bad Batch member. Woo! That is official. So you guys obviously know Nick, Comic Culture, Big Herm, Fable, Travis,
TM.
Tomorrow. Yeah, we said TM. Missing Link.
Yeah.
That's everyone. I am part of the family, and I couldn't ask to be with a greater group of people, awesome. Creators. Which is great because we all started our YouTubes around the same time, and I didn't know them when they started their YouTube channels until a few months ago. We're all kind of at like the same sub count. That doesn't matter, right? But we're all like in that phase of, okay, we're growing together, we're getting our content out. Yeah. We're always collabing with each other, so I feel like the community kind of already knew that it was a matter of time before I was with them, but it's official, and we kept it under the radar. Fable posted about it the other day. I have yet to post about it because you guys know how I roll. I keep things under the radar until I have something to drop. So you just got to keep your eyes out because you never know what you can expect with Comics Kings. You never know if you're going to see a guest on the show. You're never going to you never know what I'm doing. I kind of hide in the shadows. You never know where I'm going to be until I'm there.
Fly, maybe, like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Yeah. Maybe I'll be crashing Omni X-Men. You never know. Take over. John's like, oh God, no.
Always. What are you talking about? You're a regular.
I
think you and Chet, I think, were the two biggest return guests. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Chet. That last episode where it was the four of us, that was so much fun. So much trash talk, but Omni X-Men religiously is going to be coming back September 21st, right?
Yes, the 21st is our sort of kickoff reunion show. We're just going to be letting people know what the show is and then looking back at where we ended and what's to come next time. And then officially the 28th is when we read the next issue in the second volume.
Awesome, because that second omnibus will not be mine until they reprint it. I'm just going to read it on Marvel Unlimited.
Hey, I tend to use both. I tend to read it both so I can read it twice.
Usually when I was at work and I'd be a guest on the show, I would like literally read it while I was at work. And you're like, Brandon, what's your pen? I'm like, that one.
Screen grab, send.
But Swamp Thing came out this week, which when I was talking to Ron B, I was like, Swamp Thing comes out next week, right? He's like, no, it was this week. I'm like, oh, you're right, because my brain was on vacation. Because I've been reading a lot of my trade paperbacks and omnibus that I have in my backlog. What's a backlog? I don't know. So I was reading All New Wolverine. I read Firepower Volume 3. I read Al Ewing's Ultimates.
Nice.
I'm about 3/4 of the way through that all new Wolverine Omnibus, and I just picked it up last week. So
it's such a good read.
it's
Tom Taylor
great.
killed
It's
that.
great. So I've been so behind on my pull list until this morning and last night, and this book is great. It's by Ron V and Mike Perkins, and Mike Spicer doing the colors. So we're all very familiar with this creative team. We have the Suicide Squad crossover in Levi's little world. Amanda Waller is not happy because something is going on. She wants to investigate because she's Amanda Waller. And who's Amanda Waller? Probably the person you never want around. She's like the Hank McCoy of the DC universe.
I think I can't tell who that's more offensive to.
Yeah, right. That was the whole point. So we have what's his name? We got Peacemaker in there. We got Chemo, Chemo. But I love the format of this book and just the way that Mike Perkins' layouts are, and Mike Spicer's colors just go so well in capturing like the horrorness of this book and like how gritty it is. But also we're getting a lot of development in Levi as he's not only learning about himself in this universe, but also as just a normal teenager. But we're learning about how he can grow and mature to protect the green and what's going on in his world. So I highly recommend you guys do pick up Swamp Thing. The first trade comes out soon, I believe next month, which collects the first 4 issues and the 2 future state issues.
Okay.
So, but for more information on this issue, I recommend going back and checking the Rom V sit down, which was fantastic. Rom V, obviously on the show, talking about how he's a huge fan of Grant Morrison and their work, and a huge fan of Alan Moore, which you can tell by the language and the setup that he takes a lot of inspiration from early Vertigo books, a lot of indie writers, a lot of Fables inspiration in there, just in the kind of the setup and just the patience of it. I get a lot of Fables vibes. But this book is great, and Rom V is really good at taking a character and giving them that background. So if you guys do want a quote from the show, you had me at Swamp Thing.
So, I mean, I will say I'm not loving the Suicide Squad addition to this arc. Like, I was enjoying the comic far more before they added these guys.
Right, me too.
And like, I still feel like the villain that they set up in the first 2 issues kind of vanished and is not really been a part of it. Like, there was that creepy guy in the desert that was like, oh, this is going to be the bad guy that Swamp Thing's going to face. And then, like, I don't feel like that ever really came to anything. And now we're dealing with the Suicide Squad. And I'm like, I don't know about these guys. So it feels more like a cross-promotional, hey, go check out the Suicide Squad movie thing for me. So that's been bugging me about the last couple of Swamp Thing issues. Like you're saying, the art, the panel layouts, the color, like all that is still just fantastic, and the writing is good. It's just the storyline that we're in. If we only got 10 issues, I don't know why we're shoehorning the Suicide Squad in. I
feel like DC right now is so, guys, Suicide Squad is our most successful movie. Let's plug it everywhere now. And I did not enjoy the Suicide Squad movie the way everyone else was saying. It's so great. I'm like, but what did we watch the same movie? Because it was fine. It was a solid like 7, but it wasn't for DC standards. Yeah, it's probably their best movie. But
there's so many shots fired in those sentences. I don't even know where you're going.
But for people to say, wow, this is one of James Gunn's greatest films. No, it's not. Or this is Zack Snyder's greatest film. He barely did anything in it.
So anybody who says this is Zack Snyder's greatest film, I don't know what they're talking about. Right? That person's crazy. Because he has zero connection to this.
Like, oh, it's a Zack Snyder film. It's really not. It's
not a Zack Snyder
joint. It's really not. Why do I have such bad? I don't.
I do disagree with you that it's not good. I mean, I think this movie is probably my favorite Snyder era movie. That's not necessarily a high praise because most of those movies are garbage. But I would say that it's up there with Wonder Woman #1, which was my favorite for the longest time. And I think this probably surpasses it. I think it's certainly the most fun I've had watching a DC movie since Shazam, and it was way more fun than Shazam. So yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I just don't need cross promotion. Like
It was fine, but I feel like I think what lost me was how people were overhyping it. Like, Suicide Squad's not going to drive your universe. Suicide Squad feels like, okay, it's just an indie movie. If this movie's going to... Suicide Squad has never really been popular in the comics. The characters themselves have never really been popular. I'm not the biggest Margot Robbie fan of Harley Quinn. I think there would have been other options for that. But again, for the DCEU, it's passable. It's better than most of their other films. So again, like you said, it's not really giving it a whole lot of praise. So for the fact that DC fans have a movie that was solid, I think that's more triumphant. But again, I'm not for the overhypeness. And I think for the amount of cast members that they had and how strong that cast was, when we saw it last year in fandom and James Gunn hyping it up, it just didn't do it for me. I was like, that's it? It was fine. It made me laugh, but I wouldn't like say, hey, let's movie night that one. No, not a chance.
So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Hillbilly on this. I would put Wonder Woman instead of the Zack Snyder Justice League, because I still think Zack Snyder Justice League is really just for this one little core group of fans and not for most people. And and those core fans, it's going to be their favorite comic book movie of all time. It's going to be there, but it was going to be that before it was even released. Like, it was already decided. The cards had been cast.
Right.
For me, I've not enjoyed the Snyder era, and so for me, it is Shazam, Wonder Woman, and this movie that are the three exceptions. The three movies that I'm like, yeah, I would consider actually buying and owning and rewatching these.
Right. I'm with you. I enjoyed Shazam more than I enjoyed Aquaman.
Definitely.
Which I know that's a hot take to a lot of people. I don't think Zack Snyder was fit for the DCU. Oh, Chet's at the gym. See, John went to the gym last week instead of going to his LCS. But I feel like Zack Snyder, it was great that he got his movie, no doubt, for his family and to honor the fact that he really should not have been put out of a job after his daughter died. But I feel like there's more to the story than all of that. Sure. So it's a very touchy subject. Yeah. Whenever people start overhyping like a movie, I go the other way. And for the Zack Snyder movie and the way that he was building his characters, I'm not the biggest Batfleck fan. I enjoyed Henry Cavill the most, which was a surprise to me. And I enjoyed Ray Fisher. I've enjoyed Ray Fisher in it.
I don't think the issue with the Zack Snyder era was ever casting. I think it was always writing, and it was always the ability, the inability to fully connect with the root of those characters, and a desire to just basically make Frank Miller's Dark Knight universe into an entire Justice League thing.
Right.
And the problem is Frank Miller's take on the Bat universe and the Justice League universe is antithetical to a lot of the roots of those characters. And so it looks dark and broody and cool, but in the end you're like, so Superman just kills people now. Batman uses guns and just mows everybody down, and that's just like,
Batman was in a jet the whole time. Batman was in a jet for the whole ending. Superman comes back, and that's all you really needed. The only thing that made that movie so interesting was when Superman wasn't around. As soon as Superman came back, it's okay, Superman is the most powerful character in the DC universe next to Darkseid and Dr. Manhattan, and possibly, I would say probably at this point, Perpetua, or maybe the Batman Who Laughs, maybe.
But I mean, I get what you're saying as far as like when people have intense hyperbole for a movie, or an intense, where, I mean, I heard people saying Zack Snyder's Justice League puts all of Marvel's movies to shame. And, people like stand by some of these insane comments about how it's like, these movies do things that no movie in comic book movies ever done before. And I'm like, yeah, in that they suck. But I don't know what else.
4 hours of nonsense. 4 hours of nonsense and Barry Allen glitching.
The hyperbole does bug me, but it goes both ways, because you'll see people saying, coming out saying Shang-Chi is the best comic book movie ever made. That it's that this is a whole new era for it's just another fun, good comic book movie. I don't know that it needs the hyperbole thrown on top.
Right. For me,
That's just me.
Shang-Chi is top 5 for me.
I've yet to see it.
But
people were saying the same thing about Black Widow, and I was like, I didn't care for Black Widow either. So like, I don't know.
I liked Black Widow. I wouldn't say it was top 5. I'd say it's top 10 for me. I enjoyed Black Widow. See, that's the thing is the other thing is I don't make lists like that. So when I'm talking about, it's top 5, it's like a leeway top 5. Oh, maybe these movies will throw in there. Actually, you know what? All of them, I enjoy them. Throw them in there. Except we can leave Thor 3 out. Not Thor 3. We can leave Thor 2 out.
That's fair. That's fair.
But
so we should get back to the new comic books for the week.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was a segment. What'd you read? That's a thing we do here. We talk about comics, guys.
Nobody's going to probably talk about the new Green Lantern issue, so I'll probably be the one to talk
about it.
Oh,
yeah, I'm off that book, so tell me about it.
This was actually a really good issue. I would say so far we're 6 issues in, and half of them have been kind of mediocre and confusing and weakly drawn, and half of them have been kind of intriguing and kind of fun and look like they might connect to something bigger. So this falls into that second category. I think we finally got the teased battle, the teased showdown, Sinestro and Joe from Far Sector face to face. It's here on the cover, although this cover really doesn't do much justice for it. It's hard to kind of see it.
Wasn't Jessica Cruz supposed to be into the Sinestro Corps?
And that's in Green Lantern Annual.
That's in the Annual.
The Annual that dropped this week. So this is just issue 6 of the regular run. And I love Sinestro a ton. Probably my favorite Green Lantern related character. And I really enjoyed Far Sector. So to bring these two characters together to see how I loved that whole, I think they took 2-3 pages of dialogue together. I really loved it. The John Stewart story arc, that's like the second half of the book. I keep waiting for it to really connect to what's going on. And I'm really waiting for that artist to get their feet under them, because that portion of the book is always woefully drawn.
I love Green Lantern. Green Lantern is one of my favorite characters in the DC universe next to Nightwing, except I'm just not excited for this book. I just didn't care for...
I get it.
Who's the writer on it? It was...
Thorne.
Thorne.
Thorn.
Thorne, yeah, Thorne. Oh, Geoffrey Thorne, who literally said, I don't like Kyle Rayner and I don't like Howard Jordan. I'm like, then I don't like your Green Lantern. See you later. He tweeted that like as soon as he got the job. I'm like, why would you write a book for characters you are so openly against? But I get what he's doing with a lot of our minority Green Lantern characters,
right?
Which I appreciate that. I think that you could still achieve both sides to that, and you can give us a Hal Jordan book, and you can keep that in a separate world if you want. Also for me, it was that first issue that looked so disgustingly poor. I was like, I'm out. Sorry.
Yeah. I would say if they had done like a double-sized for issue and put issue number 1 and 2 together, I think more people would have been happy with it, because issue 2 I thought was fantastic and really was far more of the story that they were kind of like loosely setting up in issue 1. And Chaos, I get what you're saying. The difference is there's really only like 1 Green Lantern book a month, but there's like 15 Batman books, and they all have the Joker or Harley or some kind of.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about like the deluge, like I get it. And I will also say Sinestro is not the main bad in this story. He's kind of just like the guy people want to blame for the problem. And so he's wonderfully like, I'm not going to I could crush you in a moment. I don't need you. Like, yeah, I don't care. If I did, he even says they blame him for the big explosion in issue 1. And he's like, if it had been me, I'd have written my signature all across this explosion. You would have known it was me.
Right. But also, the thing about Green Lantern that we've really been seeing lately, it hasn't always been the Sinestro show, because we had Parallax in the Rebirth towards the end of Venditti's run, and then it went to Grant Morrison, which their Green Lantern was, hey, let's just undo everything Jeff Johns did and not care what he did. Which that's like the best Green Lantern we've ever gotten of like the modern Green Lantern era.
Oh, I thought you meant Morrison was, but you're saying Johns.
No, Johns, obviously Johns.
Sure. Yeah.
There's just a lot of lore to the Green Lantern character. I wish they can just go back and take from the Johns run and just expand it. Like you look at like you got Blackest Night, which was fantastic. You got a lot with the Purple Lantern. You literally got all the different colored lanterns, right? in there, just accumulating to one
And
thing. So if you're
the Sinestro Core War is phenomenal. I mean, it's just a really, really powerful, a great way to do an event. Really well done event.
Right. So I want them to get back more to that instead of focusing on let's use these guys for more. Let's take away these characters, let's punish some characters just because I don't like them, or I hate to bring race into it because it kind of feels like, okay, I just want to focus on minority characters, which is great, but you can do it in a way that's, and especially when you're tweeting, okay, F these ones to do this. That's my issue. I'm like, you can do both organically instead of
a good writer could definitely manage it all.
Right. And I don't think Thorne, I think Thorne's just putting his bias in the book, and that bias is not met with my agreement. So I'm like,
sure. But the concept in general I enjoy, and I'm hopeful that they can weave it all together for sure.
Oh, I just made that in my trash can too. That was awesome.
I'll take your word for it. All right, what are you reading?
Let's talk about Defenders #2. All right, so this is by Al Ewing, art by Javier Rodriguez, and the whole plot of this book is that we have this scientist who goes back, named Carlos Zorta, who goes back in time to fix his mistakes, but in doing that, kind of messes up the cosmos. So the Defenders, who do tarot cards, they come together, right? Have to go back in time, have to go back through the different multiverses, go back through the universe and the cosmos to find this guy. And we found the birth of Galactus at the end of the first issue. So now we're dealing with that. This book also takes a lot of inspiration from Al Ewing's Ultimates, which again, I just finished reading. So I'm very happy I did because Al Ewing brings up a lot of great science fiction concepts in the Marvel cosmic universe just to expand it. The last time we saw the Masked Raider was in Incoming in Marvel Comics 1000 that no one remembers but me. So again, pre-Empire, pre-COVID, Al Ewing was taking over the cosmos of Marvel's whatever they're doing there. And then COVID happened, and like, we're putting you on pause, buddy. And Al Ewing's like, okay, let me be low-key in Guardians. Let me be low-key. Now I got Venom to play with, who's in space. Ding, ding, ding. And now he has the Defenders, which is all leading to something. So Al Ewing is literally under everyone's radar other than Immortal Hulk. Because there's been a lot of news about Immortal Hulk, a lot of drama, a lot of beef, and a lot of screw you, Joe Bennett. Because there's a story to that. But so we're going back in there. We're seeing the birth of Galactus, and it's great. We get a lot of great character moments. The panel layout is great. The flow of the book is very science fiction-y. It's very much like you know where you are. So Javier Rodriguez does a great job at establishing, okay, the reader's not going to be confused, because I know sometimes time travel is very difficult to follow.
Yeah, very complicated.
Al Ewing knows that, and the way that he writes makes it so much simpler. When you look at it and you digest the plot, you're like, wow, this is complex if I try to talk about it to somebody. But the way Al Ewing writes it, you get it. So I would highly recommend checking out this book, especially if you're an Al Ewing fan like me. And we do get a first appearance of a character that's going to be kind of in there in this book, but so nothing to speculate about or anything, because that's not what we do here, or it's not really a cool first appearance. It's just like another character like in this part of the cosmos. So I recommend it. I liked it. I loved the first issue. We get to see the Mother Galactus, so great. Cool.
Shots fired by Chaos. I feel like his ratio is way better than 1 out of 5, especially with all the stuff he's been doing on Sword, which I've been loving. In fact, Sword has possibly become my favorite current published X title. Like, I think Sword is phenomenal. I mean, it's got Storm as a Queen of Mars. Like, what more could you possibly want?
Exactly. And you have him messing with Dormammu now. It's also pretty cool. He's like kind of combining Sword and Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's great. We talked about X-Men. What else did you read? Because I have a few more.
I got 3 left. I got 2 DC, so I'll do one of those. I'm not sure if you've been reading Nice House on the
book. I did not get to it this week because I knew you were going to. So actually, I got 4 books to talk about.
The finale of Nice House. No, sorry, not the finale. Sorry. the ending to this issue of Nice House on the Lake is excellent, and I can't come close to wanting to spoil it because it is very enjoyable when you get there. But it dawned on me that, and I pulled out the wrong issue. This is issue number 1. Sorry, whatever. It dawned on me that what they have across the top here on the cover A is all the people, right? All their symbols, and each issue a different symbol is turned yellow, so you can tell where you are in the run by looking at this little like spectrum of circles and which circle is highlighted. So we were on the smiley face for number 4. And I think it's what I like most about the book is the way that each issue kind of looks at one member of the house and what they're going through and how they relate to this problem and how it connects to the bigger mystery. And so this was an interesting look at one of the side characters who was doing sort of little experiments to figure out what's actually happening to them. So really great issue. Ooh, signatures.
Yeah, this one was the Third Eye exclusive, so it doesn't have any of the cool stuff at the top.
But really, really great. And on any other week, when I hadn't probably read so many good books, this would probably be the best book of the week. But because of, Not All Robots and The Me You Love in the Dark, there were so many other great books that were right there with it. So this is easily some of the top reads of the week, but just barely misses out.
I read Infinite Frontier number 6 by Joshua Williamson and Zermanico, and this was probably the worst last issue I've ever read from Joshua Williamson. I have a problem this week.
I've noticed.
I
think the problem is you're buying the wrong books.
I think I'm buying too many books. A big fight between the multiverse. Everyone in the multiverse is fighting. Darkseid's there. Darkseid wins. And he has Roy Harper trapped in a chain. He's like, "You're my Black Lantern, but I'm not going to let you do anything because you're mine." Treats him like a hostage. President Superman just comes at him and they throw down, which is great. Power Girl was not fun to look at because she was basically getting her ass kicked the whole time. I felt bad for her. But I didn't like the writing. My biggest problem was this book has been so slow and it's been so all over the place and it just did not come together well. It was too much to handle. And again, there were so many different artists on here to where they were all blended together. I'm like, okay, I'm not used to this. And excuse me, I've been hiccuping since like 12 o'clock today. It just did not pay off, and we're gonna get everything explained in a mini series, a Justice League mini series. And I'm just like, no. I'm like, I'm not.
That happens when they do some big event and they're like, but don't worry, we'll explain it in the next event.
Right? And I'm just like, oh, great.
You're like, no, your job is to tell the story.
But it brings in another multiverse, the Multiverse 2. This guy traps Barry Allen in this multiverse to where he's with his family. So I'm like, oh, Joshua Williamson, you love the Flash and you want to be happy. I get it. We all get it. We know what you did for him in Rebirth. Move on, buddy. You're off the book. I just think this issue was so jumbled with so many characters that we're not used to, and they were all built with different artists. It just did not come together well, and I had a feeling this was not going to be paid off very well, just because I know what Joshua Williamson strives at, and that's not this. That's okay. Let me give this character a family, like a surrounding team, but spotlight said character, like with the Flash. I'm going to use that as an example because it's his most known work. Sure. Surrounding Barry Allen with a family, but spotlighting Barry Allen through the use of his family, so you're really elevating everyone in the book. Yeah,
I kind of agree with that. Yeah.
Everything is multiverse now in DC. Yeah, because everything is a scapegoat. If it doesn't sell, it's in that multiverse. You don't have to care about it, guys. I'm just like, what the fuck? What are you doing? What are we doing? So, and this book was they're like, okay, Darkseid's here, who dwells outside of everything. So Darkseid's the only villain we can really use, right?
Darkseid is.
Darkseid is, but I was like, no, I was like, it could have been better. It could have been better. But it is what it is. And I'm excited for his Deathstroke. I'm excited for his Batman because I think those are books he will excel at. His Robin is great. His Robin's fantastic. again, because he's putting Damian Wayne in a situation surrounded by other characters that he doesn't have to share attention with. This book has to share
Robin's
attention.
been uneven for me, and I was ready to drop it. And then the latest issue came out with all the other Robins, and I was like, okay, this is what I wanted from your book. I'm done with like Fantasy Murder Island. Like, let's give me something different.
Oh, you didn't like Playtime for Damien?
Exactly. All right, I only got 2 left. You got 3 left?
I got 3. Let me knock out Batman 112 over on the DC kick. This is by James Tynion and Jorge Jimenez. Also, anyone don't go anywhere because we're going to be talking about the pick of the week for me, which was actually Spider-Man, surprisingly. I would have never thought in 73 issues of garbage I would have said that. But so Fear State, I love this book. This was really close to being my pick of the week. It was this, The Me You Love in the Dark, and Spider-Man that were my top ones, which all exceeded Daredevil, which was weird for me. But which was weird for me. So Scarecrow, his toxin is not so much fear, but he's like inside people's minds now, not at like the forefront of like their brain. Or I'm trying to use a science word and it did not work. So we get Simon Saint, and he's bringing in his task force to really keep the peace in there because he's really contracting for Scarecrow's funding for his new fear toxin, hence the whole Fear State. But they have a falling out, so now Simon Saint's trying to be the nice guy. Miracle Molly's like, no, you're not. So Miracle Molly is trying to get Harley Quinn and Ghostmaker to convince Poison Ivy, hey, we need your help because you can combat Fear State. You can combat everything going on. Batman goes insane, gets rescued by Orphan and Spoiler, and there is a new Oracle who's like an anti-Oracle. So we're dealing with that too. So it's just Gotham going to hell and Batman just going mad insane. And I was here for it. I'm totally here for it. The art's fantastic. The peacekeeping force just completely got like shut down.
It's a funny comment. I agree, Chaos. Yeah, it is ironic that I wouldn't like a Fantasy Murder Island, even though I love the TV show Lost.
Yep. So I'm here for it because everything's like failing in Gotham, and the guy who's like, "Oh, I'm gonna save you guys," and everyone's like, nope, because the Peacekeeper got hit with the fear toxin, started killing people because he thought, okay, these normal citizens were bad, so he just started killing them. So that did not look good on public TV, right?
That's not my. I mean, I wouldn't want it on mine,
right? No, I wouldn't want to see that. So we're dealing with that, and it proves my theory of how Batman's going to be moving forward. And we're going to see Miracle Molly being the next Oracle. You're going to see Harley and Ghostmaker teaming up to fight Punchline in the future, which I think would be great. And Clown Hunter's going to end up going to Bloodhaven after all this to be mentored by Dick. That's my theory going forward. I really enjoyed this book. I know a lot of people have not been enjoying Tynion's Batman run. Either you have or you haven't. I think it has its up and downs, but this issue was solid, and I'm ready for it.
Nice. Well, I'll do my last DC book then, which you had mentioned you hadn't read, Blue and Gold. Did I grab number 1 again? Darn it. I read issue 2, though. I've got issue 2 as well, I swear. I'm a big Booster Gold fan. I'm a big Blue Beetle fan. So I was really looking for this, like, Dan Jurgens' return to these characters. I thought issue 1 was a little light for me. It just didn't have a lot to it. Issue 2 was a lot stronger. I like the dynamic of Booster and Blue Beetle a lot more in this issue. I like the setup of certain villains in this issue and their problems and how they're trying to solve them in, of course, the most bizarre, wacky ways. I really did enjoy this as a second issue. So I'm hopeful now that maybe this is an 8-issue arc I might really appreciate. But issue 1 gave me some worries. I was like, this might be a 7, 6.5. This one felt more like an 8, and I was like, okay, I can build on this. Let's build on this. Let's see what we got. So I'm in for more of Dan Jurgens' goodness. I think these are characters that are underrepresented, and I keep joking that I want a Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, like time traveling, like road trip movie from DC. That's what I really want.
I want an animated series with Booster and Ted Cord.
I'd be down.
I would be 100% down
for sure.
This is a book that I didn't get to this week. I have it. I have issue 2. It's at the bottom of my list. But again, vacation reading, which was so rewarding. And then I had to read for archives, which you guys will be seeing very shortly, which I'm editing on. So an hour and a half video to edit. Great, love it. And school. So Star Wars World of Bounty Hunters #4 came out by Charles Soule and Luke Ross. What we're dealing with now is a big cliffhanger. Luke Skywalker coming to save the day. Vader's like, I'm ready for you. And Luke's like, oh shit. And makes a left turn. His what's up, Empire? And what is up, Rod Rican?
What's up, Rod?
I love Rod. Rod's awesome. Empire, you're awesome too. I just love Rod. Rod's like the most handsome person in Florida. That's what he is. Rod is the face of Florida. So Vader obviously has no interest in Han Solo whatsoever. Vader has 100% interest in Luke Skywalker. Why? That's his son. And instead of reaching out like a normal father, he's like, I'm going to kill your friend if you don't come here. So Luke's like, I'm going to draw you out because you just want to chase me around. Leia, Chewbacca, and Lando, they try to make a break for it, but Jabba ends up winning the whole auction that's been going on. So the Empire takes Han, but Jabba's like, nah, I got him. And Boba Fett makes an alliance with Dengar and Valance to go get, well, mainly Valance because Dengar was kind of being like a little sensitive. But we're dealing with that. We got the Hutt family kind of had this meeting going like, Jabba, what are you doing? You won the auction. Go get your prize. He's like, no, not yet. So the whole purpose of Jabba not getting his prize, then we know that Jabba ends up with Han Solo because we all seen the 6th movie and how great it was. But Jabba is just like, they're going to learn that I am still more powerful than everyone else here. So Jabba has like this big boom ending to the book. I'm not going to spoil it because if you are reading it, I want you to get that like, good job. I've never thought I would ever say, good job, Jabba. And I don't like Jabba. I just loved him in this book. So I'm like, yes. He basically sends a complete fleet for the Empire shuttle that had Han Solo on it. And it's not like one ship. It's like 25 ships. This is one little Imperial shuttle. The same one that they like the model they used to get to Endor. Like no weapons, not great deflector shields. I'm like, Jabba, you're the man. And Boba and Valance are just like, Boba's awesome. He gets in a fight with Dengar. Now, if you know their history, they're tied together because Dengar was one of Boba's mentors when Boba was a kid after his father died. What is going on? Raging Cajun, who was also in the Spinetix crew. He wasn't on the show, but he was in the chat. I remember interacting with him last night, but what's going on? So Boba was like to Dengar, he's like, you're really going to try to fight me? He's like, you're not a name. And he said it to both him and Valance. But Dengar got mad, and Valance was like, you just pissed him off. Like, and now you just want to team up with me? Boba was like, I didn't mean it. It was all talk. Just Dengar didn't see it that way. And I was just like, dude, I was like, boom, there we go. So Charles was an expert in Star Wars, and I loved it. I really did. I love this book.
Nice.
It's going to read great in trade. It's going to read so well in trade. That's what I'm most excited for, is reading Star Wars all collected. And I want to see how they do it with like the font and everything. I have high hopes.
Nice.
What's the last book you got?
I saved this one for last. I haven't seen a lot of people this week talking about Jeff Lemire's Maze book. He did a Dark Horse comic issue #1 this week, and I'm a Lemire fanboy. Like, he's got an Image #1 coming out next week. I'm just always looking for new stuff from him. He also drew and wrote this book, which is in style to his book called The Nobody, that is kind of like an Invisible Man kind of comic from a ways back. And this one is more emotional. It's about a dad who lost his kid, and he's still dealing with that grief all these years later and can't seem to let go. And he feels like he's in a maze. He's like, life is repetitious. The visuals of like the little girl without a face is kind of a creepy vibe to it. I think that this book could go in a lot of fun, different directions. Boom. And I would definitely have this in the top, near the top of my list. Again, Not All Robots is not going to get kicked out of the #1 spot this week, but books like this, books like the Me You Love in the Dark, I think there were a lot of really fun indies this week. And Jeff Lemire, always a safe pick when you can see his name on a book.
Right, 100%. Jeff
and
Lemire.
when his name's on the book twice, even more so.
Oh, perfect. Front and back? Okay. Okay. Amazing Spider-Man number 73. I'm so frustrated of how much I like this book because now I'm like, why didn't we have issue? Why? So my biggest complaint about this book, John's just like, oh dear, I did not want to be the replacement this week.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be like,
so my biggest complaint with this book, with this run, is Nick Spencer tries to utilize a lot of the similar moments from the 80s, from Spider-Man after Brand New Day, and retconning those and take some of those moments, like, for example, James Jonah Jameson and Tombstone. That's one because that was so recent. Or the whole thing with Peter's sister and the Chameleon, with Teresa Parker and the Chameleon. Or stuff with Spider-Man and Black Cat, just same old shit. Or Spider-Man and MJ's relationship, Spider-Man and the Lizard relationship early on in the book. This was about Norman and Harry. Also retconning one of our least favorite arcs. I don't even want to say its name, but Since Past. And when you know Since Past, that is a story that gave us, okay, Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy did the nasty and had kids that attacked Spider-Man. And one of them died. And the point of him bringing this up is Harry manipulated the whole situation, and they were really clones, but psychedelically convincing to Norman that I actually mated with this woman. So it wasn't real, but Norman had it in its head for so long, which I think that's like the biggest triumph of this book, is it's getting away with literally the most nauseating fact of being a Spider-Man fan. But the way Nick Spencer does this book, it's in a very psychedelic way. The art by Carlos Gomez, who I've enjoyed on this book. Carlos and Ron Fierro were great. Sinclair's coloring was the best it's been on this book, because I think Sinclair's finally, who's also a friend of the show, who's finally in a position where he's used to these different styles. What's up, Ruben? And Chaos says, I'm reading ASM Marvel Limited. I'm okay, sure. I'm glad I'm not paying $4 for these issues. But this one was so good because I know Nick Spencer has the capability to achieve those moments. He always when he sets them up, I'm like, good. But then either one more panel, one more sentence, or maybe even like another issue or less of something just goes the other way. And I'm like, oh, you missed. You were so close too. And I'm just like, damn. But this one was great. So I know he has it in him. I'm just like, why didn't we get
it? I'm Spider-Man and Batman for me are all persona non grata. Like, I just don't want them anywhere near my collection these days. When I was a kid, it was like Xmen and those guys. And now it's like, I want less.
You just want Xmen.
That's the truth.
Just want Xmen. But I love this book, and I hate that I love it because I've been so critical of it, but I loved this book. I was like, yes, we got rid of it. We can move on with our lives. We can move on. We can continue being fun Spider-Man fans and not have to live with the fact that, okay, Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn had kids together, even though they're 40 years apart in age. It's like, that's like Donald Trump being with one of his daughter's best friends.
You already. Well, yeah, I mean, he would probably be happy with that, but whatever.
Yeah, he would be happy with it, but not. But yeah, nope. But anyway, that's it for the show on my end. Like I said, you can find me over on Instagram at Comics Kings, TikTok at Comics Kings. Stay tuned for more announcements because I'm going to be dropping whenever I feel like it, so you just have to be aware of it. I'm going to be reposting a lot of my funny TikToks that I've been doing over onto Instagram. Kind of took a step back from posting books because, I don't know, I kind of been exhausted by, my biggest frustration right now in the community is, a book is only as good as its dollar value or as its key value. And I'm like, that's not true, because some of our favorite runs don't have a lot of key value. Look at the New Avengers, and everyone knows number 27 because of First Ronin. You should know that whole run because it sets up. It's so great.
I do. In fact, it's in this short box right here, the entire run.
And that short box, I will be making the trip to California and back. And John, when you are asleep, I shall strike.
I still owe you that trade paperback. It's sitting right over there.
But John, what you been going? We already dropped your announcement. Of anything else you want to share with the people?
I don't. I mean, I'm prepping for the final review show for Fables with my buddy JP Budget Collecting. We've done all 21 volumes, so there's just the final 22nd volume left to talk about. That'll be on Thursday evening on his channel. And in a couple hours, I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons on Big Will's channel. Sentry, heck yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
But that's about it for me this week on YouTube. I'm just super swamped. So it's really just been the only things I know I'm doing are Dungeons and Dragons on Sundays and then the show with my girls on Saturdays. Is pretty much the only things that I'm guaranteeing each week.
There you go. And
if other stuff like this come up, then I'm happy to try to fit it in.
Yeah, thank you so much for popping on here, chatting. I'm sure Bryce is very proud. All right, thank you guys so much for popping out in the live chat. If you're catching the replays, shout out to you as well. Drop a like, which I never say. I've been very bad at saying make sure you like, subscribe, because if you're watching this, you're probably gonna like and subscribe, but just do it anyway because it keeps the lights on in my little basement that I do the show in. But thank you guys so much again. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a great rest of the day if you're not watching this on Sunday.